Hey everybody, my name is Adam Arnold. I'm an account executive here at Searchmetrics. So I work with companies to help them learn how to leverage data in order to improve the performance of their website. So in today's video, what I want to cover is a very common practice that many SEOs do, which is keyword research. So I want to kind of start off by talking about what the importance of keyword research is, how you can actually start to develop your keyword list, how you should be prioritizing which keywords you should go after, and then also how you should actually group them. So let's dive in. So to start things off, I just want to talk about why is keyword research even important? Why should we even think about it or focus on it? So really, keyword research can serve as the blueprint for your entire website. So whether you're doing a site migration or a site rebuild and you're starting from scratch, or you're working on a current existing site, knowing what people are actually searching for is really the only way that you can actually drive traffic to your website. Because over 90% of pages out there are getting zero traffic via organic search. So it's very important to understand what people are actually searching for so you can actually start to develop your site structure and the actual pages to get that relevant traffic. So when you start the keyword research process, I would just begin by just trying to generate a list. Just start to generate ideas of the types of keywords that you want to focus on. So this could have to do with maybe you just want to focus on a certain category or section of your website. So for example, if you're Target, you just want to focus on clothing. So it's maybe just t-shirts, something like that. Start to generate ideas around that. In today's example, I'm going to focus on runnersworld.com. So for them, it's really all kind of, everything's kind of in one category. So you can look here. So you figure they're going to be doing stuff around running shoes, running gear. If we click through their kind of menu here as we scroll through, you can see there's trail running. We have races and places. And so you can just kind of look through the menu of the site, and you really start to generate a lot of ideas as to what keywords might pop up. This is just one way to do it. Another way is you can go to Google if you want to start to determine, okay, what are the different clusters? How are these different keyword combinations coming about? So you could just type in running shoes, for example, and you can see some of the options that pop up. So you have running shoes for women, running shoes near me. I'm based in San Francisco, so you can see running shoes San Francisco pops up. We have running shoes Nike, running shoes for flat feet. So let's just go ahead and click into this, and then you can see kind of some of the types of searches that pop up here as well. So as we scroll down, so we have running shoes Nike, there's men's shoes. Here you can also start to see some of the questions if you're kind of curious, what are some common questions that are being asked about, running shoes in particular. This would be a good way to start looking for that. So which shoes are best for running, give you an idea on some content ideas. So that's another way to do it. You could also go to different blogs or different forums. So I just searched, there's a running forum, letsrun.com. This isn't probably the most efficient way to do it just because there's a lot of topics in here that aren't super relevant to running. But you can at least see, people in the running space, what sorts of things are being asked. So you have, so there's best RX eyeglasses for running. We have what's the best deal you ever got on running shoes, right? So you can look through it that way too. Another really common way to do it, I think can be really smart, is maybe talk to the sales team. The sales team is going to have a pretty good idea of the different types of questions and concerns and thoughts that a lot of your prospects are actually going to have. So especially if you're like a B2B company, that could be a really valuable resource, is just speaking to the salespeople. So this could be a great way. These are just a couple ideas to get a huge list of a number of keywords you want to focus on. The problem is you don't have any search volume numbers around that. So some of these might not be the most relevant questions or topics to focus on. So one thing I would do if you're doing it this way is go into your Google Keyword Planner. It's a free tool that you should have with Google Analytics. Adobe Analytics has a version of this too. This will kind of give you a range of search volume. It's not the most accurate thing in the world, but if you're on a really limited budget, this is a pretty good way to do it. In terms of what search volume you should actually stick with, like if it's below 1,000 searches a month, get rid of it. I don't necessarily have a number for you. What you could do is I have a resource here, ignitevisibility.com. We'll just tell you, I'm getting a lot of pop-ups here today. We'll just tell you if you're in position 1, for example, what the typical click-through rate is, position 2, etc. So based on your own conversion rates, which you can find in Google Analytics, you should kind of start to put together like what makes sense for us to actually spend time on. If we get 20 people to the site, is that really valuable? Do we need 1,000 people to the site for that to be valuable? So that can start to help you prioritize which of those keywords that you actually want to focus on. So if you don't want to have to do it the long way where you're going and typing different keywords into Google to see what sorts of questions pop up here, for example, or what other keywords are popping up within these pages, you don't want to have to go to the different message boards and read around at those and then cross-reference everything with the keyword planner. It makes it a lot easier if you use an SEO platform or SEO tool. There's a bunch of different tools out there. I work for Searchmetrics, so I'll just kind of show you how easy it is to look this sorts of stuff up in our suite. So there's a section in our suite called the Research Cloud. That's where we're tracking actually over 1.4 billion keywords on a weekly basis. But there's an area where we can look at keyword discovery. So I'm just going to plug in what I had plugged in before into Google. Just type in running shoes. So we can really type in any keyword that we want into this section. And what this will do is instead of having to go into that Google page and look through everything, look through all the different links and go to the forums, this is really just starting to list off all the different variations of the keyword running shoes and then listing it to us by search volume. On the left-hand side, it's showing us already all of the different variations that can actually pop up with the term running shoes. So if we want to just click on best, for example, we know there's 2,400 combinations of best and running shoes. We can change things up as well. So if we look at phrase match or a word match, it's just kind of looking at things going, oh, running shoes doesn't have to be in the exact same order. We could have shoes and then running, or we could just have the word running. It just kind of gives us different variations that we can look at within this list. But what's important though, it is going to give us the search volume. So we definitely want to know how many people are actually searching for it. The other thing we might want to know that can be really important is seasonality. So let me just scroll up here to the top so you can see this a little bit better. Seasonality, this is essentially going to show us the month-by-month search volume. So the thing with the Google Keyword Planner is it's really giving us kind of a range or an average throughout the year. Whereas a lot of products, they really do have different spikes throughout given times of the year. So you can see for running, there is actually the highest kind of search volume there is in April. So it can give us kind of a concept of, okay, if we're going to create a lot of content around running, might be good to kind of get that content started, get that process going in the winter so that we can really go live with some of that content in March or April, really when that peak search season is. So it's really important and really can be really helpful to have all this information with you as you're starting to do the research. And plus, there's a ton of different options. You can see here, there's thousands and thousands of options that you can look through. One cool thing you can do as well is you can click on the questions button here. So instead of before how we would plug it in and we would go, okay, so if we look here, here's kind of 4 different questions that are really common that are popping up within for running shoes. This way, for best running shoes, we're already looking at a bunch of different options of the most common questions being asked around search volume. So again, this is one way to really just start generating ideas, start to generate a list. I think the next thing we want to start focusing on is why don't we look at some of the keywords that we already rank for and some of the opportunities that exist there. So now that you've gotten your list started just on different ideas or keywords you might want to focus on, looking at things like seasonality and search volume, might be a really good idea as you continue to build that list, actually start looking at keywords that maybe you already rank for. So you can go into your Google Search Console and actually look at the different keywords that you rank for. I'm not able to go in and show anybody's current rankings within their Search Console, but I can show you things within the Searchmetrics suite. So what I'll do is go into this section of our suites called the organic ranking section. So this is basically for runnersworld.com. This is just showing all of the different keywords that they currently rank for. There's a lot of different ways that you can actually filter out this list. So you can see here it's showing us the keyword that they rank for, the specific URL, we have the position, a couple other metrics that I'll go over in a second. But if we want to just, hey, I just want to focus on a particular category within the website, that's one thing you might want to do. So you could go in and, for example, in our suite, you can go in and you can filter by URL. So if you just want to focus on just the gear section, for example, or you want to take out branded terms. So you want to take out anything with Runner's World in it, for example, you can do that. But nonetheless, I think this is a great area to look and start to formulate, okay, these are some of the keywords. These are the keywords that I want to actually focus on, right? So if we go in here and we look at the keyword, we see the page it's on. We can also see the position. And we are looking at search volume as well. So if you remember before in the keyword discovery section, we were looking at search volume as a pretty important kind of factor there. And if you remember before, we were looking at the kind of the general click-through rates or the average click-through rates by position. So that's important to look at. However, within our suite, there is a little bit more important metric, or a little bit more accurate metric, which is what we have in here is called traffic index. So this is an estimation of how much monthly traffic that URL is getting based on that keyword's position. And it's a little bit different than these click-through rates, just because these click-through rates are basically assuming that there's no like SERP features at the top. So if you remember from running shoes, for example, we have these different PLA ads, and we have these maps here. So the top position is actually down here. So that will actually affect the specific click-through percentage for that. That's why it's important to use some sort of SEO tool to try to get a little bit more deeper insight here. So we can look, and it kind of gets estimations as to, okay, being in position 6 for sprinting, we're getting about 71,000 people per month. Now, that could be good or bad just depending on your website. I think what's important to try to understand is where does the opportunity actually lie? So that's where we have the traffic index potential. So this is traffic index potential. This is a delta. So basically what this is saying is if you were in position 1 for the term sprinting, you would get an additional 388,000 people to the website. So that might be amazing for your website. That might be not that great depending if you're Amazon. I don't know how much of an impact that would have. Still probably pretty good. But nonetheless, you could start to filter this list by the opportunity that each keyword has, right? Let me just scroll down here as well. I want to scroll over some of the other metrics that you can see. Another thing you might want to look at is just the CPC value. Typically, if it's a higher CPC value, it's just going to be a little bit higher competition overall. And then another thing here is going to be the actual search intent. So when somebody types this into Google, what are they actually trying to get? Are they looking to purchase something? Are they looking to read, get their questions answered? So you can see intent here. We have informational is more of they're trying to get different questions answered, read something long form more likely. Transactional is they're looking to actually make a purchase. So this is going to kind of play in when we actually start to learn how to group the different keywords. But it's important to kind of keep this in mind as you're building out this list. We definitely want to keep it in mind. I at times like to just filter by the delta traffic index potential. So which keywords have the greatest opportunity for growth. It's one way to do it. Another thing you can do here is you can do like quick wins. So for example, this is basically going to look at keywords within positions 5 to 50. So if you wanted to filter out and go, okay, let's look at keywords that, are in position 6 and they have a huge upside, or maybe position 15, just the term shoe, for example, that's going to be on page 2. We have an initiative around getting keywords from page 2 to page 1. That could be one way that you can do it as well overall. So after I really started to generate a decent sized list of keywords that I want to focus on, whether again that's looking through Google and looking what people are ranking for, or that's going to different forums, or you use an SEO platform, you can actually look at what you're currently ranking for. What I would want to do is actually start to look at the competition. I want to see, can I grab any market share away from any competitors? Are there any certain keywords that I want to take away and kind of gain position on them? So one thing you can do there is, again, if we could just use the term running shoes as an example, you can plug that in and you can start to see who are you competing with. So if you're Runner's World, like you have Nike is a big competitor, you have Running Warehouse is one, Roadrunner Sports, right? Runner's World, it looks like they're in position 4 here. We have Zappos. So you can just plug in a keyword and get a decent sense for the competitive landscape. So if you just have a list of 10, 15 keywords, nothing too big, and you just kind of want to get a sense for who you're competing with, just go ahead and plug them in Google and just get a sense for who you're competing with. Obviously, if you use an SEO platform, you can get much more in-depth insights into what's going on with the competition. So I'll just kind of share with you guys a little bit what we can do within search metrics. So what we're looking at here, this is basically a kind of a trend line of their organic visibility. So basically, how likely are these different companies to receive traffic through organic search? So this is really just pulling in kind of the top 10 organic competitors for Runner's World based on the relevance of the keywords and then also how many keywords they actually compete for. So you can get a sense here. So Runner's World is actually this light blue one. So the ones I've highlighted, they're the lowest one. But I think I like to look at it that way because that's just a way to go, okay, who's next above me? Who can I grab market share from? So what you could do is, like, so if we just take out shape.com as an example, you can see like Men's Health, Very Well Fit. I mean, they've had a pretty good kind of run here over the last, basically the last year. This is basically a 2-year trend line. So we might go, okay, well, let's kind of take a look at these different websites and see what kind of keywords are they ranking for, or are they improving on, or maybe how about like keywords that they're ranking for that we're not. So as I scroll down here, this is just going to give us a little bit of an example of how many keywords we actually compete for with the different competitors, and then also how relevant they are to our actual industry. So I'm just going to use verywellfit.com just as a quick example here. So go ahead and hit compare domain. This is going to look at things on a whole domain level. A lot of tools, including ours, what you can is you can look at things on like a directory or a subdomain level. Might be a little bit more relevant sometimes, just depending on what your initiatives are. But I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom. And this is basically just going to show me, hey, here's the amount of keywords that I rank for that they don't. Here's the keywords that they rank for that I don't. And then here's the keywords we compete for. So this is one way to just kind of look at it side by side, and you can get a sense for, okay, a good example would be sprinting. So we actually used that one before. So being in position 6 for sprinting, they're in position 11, getting about 71,000 visits because of that. They're getting about 22,000 visits. So what you can do is you can go in here, and really, I didn't mention this earlier, but really kind of any of these charts and graphs and all these different keywords, you can come into here and just export this data if you ever want to do anything with an Excel. But this can give you kind of a feeling for, okay, which keywords am I winning on? Which ones am I losing on? And are these actually important keywords? Are really actually getting much traffic because of these? Do they have much of a search volume, right? Looking at things like unique keywords that they rank for that we don't, that can always be really interesting, because if you're trying to just kind of look for a complete new set of keywords that you guys don't currently rank for, you want to create brand new content, you can go through all your different competitors here and you can just see, okay, what are the different keywords here that they rank for that I don't? Are they getting a lot of traffic to these pages because of these keywords? Are these high search volume terms? So this can be a really good way to kind of round off that keyword list in terms of what you want to actually spend time on, what's worth it to spend time on. So we've gone through Google and we've looked at different keyword terms. We've looked at what keywords we rank for currently. We've looked at the competition, which keywords they rank for that we don't, which ones we're competing on. And hopefully after all of this, you've really kind of started to put together a pretty comprehensive list of the keywords you might want to focus on based on the search volume, based on the actual potential or opportunity for that given keyword. Now we actually kind of need to start figuring out how we want to group these together, because if you create a page, you're probably going to want to have that page ranking for multiple different keywords, but kind of within a very similar grouping. This video could probably be like an hour long, but I'm just going to kind of skim over kind of some of the ideas and things you could look for. So one thing is really just to kind of do the eye test, right? So if you look at, like, for example, I mean, the top two here, we have sprinting, we have sprints, right? Those would be, pretty clear that those are probably, going to be within the same page, right? Other things you could do is, if you remember what I mentioned before, let me just scroll over to the right-hand side here, is we might want to group things by search intent. So, if you are looking at an informational term, it's more likely you probably are going to want to kind of write a lot more content on that page, address questions, because that's what the actual reader, the consumer, wants, right? So you can look at those keywords on that particular page. Maybe this is a blog post. If it's a transactional term, maybe this is more of just like a category page, and we can put some content on it, but we want to optimize more for people actually making a purchase as opposed to learning something, for example. So I would typically like to group things by search intent, but also just looking at the actual traffic index potential, so that delta. So if I did improve my rankings for a given keyword, how much could I actually gain in traffic? That's another way to do it. And then also by initiatives. Maybe you have a new product launch, or maybe just one of the areas of your website has been really struggling. Maybe that's how I want to group things. We want to focus things that way too. So those are just kind of a few different ways that you could do it. One thing too is you could just go into Google and, for example, you could type in, if you're looking at a number of different keywords, you look at like running shoes, you look at maybe running gear, and maybe you have like tennis shoes, right? And you want to see, like, are these all kind of related? Could these rank on the same page? You could just type in running shoes into Google and you can look through and just get a sense, like, are some of these top ranking pages, they rank for multiple of those, right? And so I see running shoes. I don't know if I see running gear or tennis shoes, right? So maybe those aren't necessarily super related or semantically associated. So you might want to kind of group things a little bit differently there. That's kind of really an old school way to do it. It's super time consuming. Within search metrics, we can actually go in. We have a section here. It's actually called Topic Explorer. So if we go into this section, this will give us an idea of semantic association. So if we just type in running shoes, for example, we get the search volumes, about 200,000 a month. Let's click into here. It'll take just a second to actually pop up all the different associations, but in a second you're just going to see some bubbles pop up. So what you can see here is you have that core topic of running shoes as a check mark. And we can also look and we can see men's running shoes is something that's also pretty semantically associated. So the closer the bubble is to this core topic, the more semantically associated it is. The size of the bubble has to do with the search volume. So men's running shoes, if we just kind of reconfirm that here, we scroll down, we type in running shoes, so we have men's shoes here, right? So obviously this is kind of probably a similar category. So one way to do it is really, just to go into something like this. Then search metrics, you can do it. I'm not sure exactly how you can do it within other platforms, but you can look at semantic associations here. So sports shoes might be something that we would want to look at as well. And again, as I mentioned before, there is search intent. So if you click over here on the search intent, we can start to see which of these keywords are going to be informational by nature, which are going to be transactional. That can really start to drive that strategy. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can group it. A lot of it's just going to depend on your initiatives, but those are just kind of a couple of kind of key ways to group things that we focus on.